Most people think Nevada is only bright lights and empty deserts, but the truth hides in strange landscapes, lost towns, and risky places you rarely hear about. Stay with me, because one of the last Nevada facts will change how you see this state forever. Before we explore the wildest corners of Nevada, imagine standing in a place where the air feels heavy and the silence stretches for miles, making you wonder what lies beyond the next ridge and why so few people ever see these forgotten areas. Nevada's geography pulls you in slowly, almost like it wants you to uncover its secrets. And the first thing you notice is how quickly the world shifts from blazing heat to icy winds as mountains rise suddenly from the desert floor. One of Nevada's biggest surprises is that it actually has a glacier tucked high in the mountains, a frozen reminder of ancient times that feels completely out of place in a state famous for heat, giving the land an eerie and unexpected contrast. Standing near that glacier, you feel the strange mix of warm desert air and cold mountain wind, and you begin to understand why Nevada's landscapes pull explorers back again and again, promising danger, beauty, and mystery all at once. Move just a little farther and you reach valleys carved by forces older than the first humans to walk this region, shaping deep cracks in the earth that look calm from above, but hide countless stories beneath their shadowed walls. Nevada's hidden valleys give you that uneasy feeling, the same one you get when you know something once happened there, but no one ever wrote it down, leaving only the land itself to whisper the past back to anyone willing to listen. People love to talk about Las Vegas, but the real Nevada stretches far beyond bright signs, reaching toward deserts so quiet that even your heartbeat sounds louder, and every step reminds you that survival here has always been a challenge. The silence in those deserts isn't peaceful. It's the kind that makes you turn your head at the slightest sound, because you know wide open space can hide danger in a way crowded cities never could, especially once the sun starts sinking. Nevada also holds underwater ghost towns, places swallowed by rising lakes where streets, schools, and homes now sit beneath dark water, reminding you how fragile entire communities can be when nature decides to shift the landscape without warning. Swimming or boating near those flooded towns feels surreal because you know entire lives once played out below you, and the idea of a forgotten world resting under your feet makes Nevada feel even stranger than you expected. Then there are the mountains, sudden giants rising from dry ground, each one holding different weather, different animals, and different dangers, making Nevada feel like several states stacked on top of each other, rather than one single place. Climb just a little higher, and the entire desert opens below you like a giant map, and you understand why early travelers feared these routes, because one wrong turn in this landscape could leave you stranded without help for days. Nevada also has salt flats that stretch farther than your eyes can follow, glowing white under the sun and creating strange illusions that make it hard to tell where the ground stops and the sky begins, playing tricks on anyone passing through. Walk across those flats, and the air feels sharper, the light brighter, and your sense of direction weaker, making it easy to see why explorers once wrote that these places felt cursed, even though they were simply shaped by time and heat. Nevada's deserts also hide deep caves carved by volcanic events, dark openings that look harmless from outside but twist into narrow paths and chilling chambers that once forced early researchers to question how far they should go inside. Entering one of those caves feels like stepping into another world entirely, with air so still it almost feels alive, and shadows stretching so far you can't help but wonder what stories were trapped in those rocks long before you arrived. To the west, Nevada holds huge mountain lakes fed by snowmelt, and from above they look peaceful, but their icy depths remind you that even beautiful places in this state carry hidden risks, especially when weather changes quickly. Sit by the lake at dawn, and you notice the sharp change from calm silence to sudden winds rolling across the water, making you feel that you're sitting in a place where nature always decides the rules, and visitors simply adjust. Nevada also has some of the darkest night skies in America, where stars burn brighter than most people ever see, and the silence mixed with the glow can make the land feel both welcoming and unsettling, depending on your imagination. Stay long enough under those skies, and you start to sense why some travelers claim the desert feels alive at night, with shifting winds and distant sounds that don't always match anything you can see on the horizon. One of the most striking features is how mountains and basins repeat across the entire state, creating waves of rising and falling land that make long drives feel endless, as if you're crossing a natural maze stretching toward every direction. Those repeating ridges make the land confusing even today, and early travelers often walked in circles without realizing it, proving that Nevada's geography can fool even the most prepared people when distance and heat work together. Nevada's red rock landscapes look almost alien, shaped by wind that carved strange towers, arches, and sharp ridges, giving you the sense that the earth itself was twisted into shapes meant to warn or remind anyone passing through. Walk through those red canyons, and the tight walls block sound in a way that makes every footstep echo, surrounding you with an odd feeling that the land is watching, waiting, and holding stories you're only brushing the surface of. And as you move deeper into Nevada, you begin realizing every corner of this state hides something unexpected, whether it's a vanished town, a frozen mountaintop, or a desert that feels strangely alive, pulling you toward the next mystery waiting ahead. As you continue deeper into Nevada's wild terrain, you start noticing enormous dry lake beds that look harmless but can turn dangerous fast, because the ground beneath their cracked surfaces hides pockets of soft mud that can trap anything heavy without warning. Standing on one of those empty lake beds feels unreal, like you're standing on the floor of a vanished ocean, and the silence spreads so widely that even the smallest sound feels out of place, almost like you're intruding on forgotten ground. Nevada also holds volcanic craters that burst open thousands of years ago, leaving behind wide circular scars in the land that still feel intimidating today, making visitors imagine what it must have looked like when fire and smoke tore through the desert sky. When you approach one of those craters, the drop looks sharper than photos ever show, and the dark layers of rock reveal how violent the eruption must have been, creating a chilling reminder of just how unpredictable Nevada's geology can be. Move farther west, and you'll find one of the hottest regions in the country, where the heat hits so hard that mirages shimmer across the horizon, making distant shapes bend and twist until you can't tell what's real and what's simply desert light. Walking there feels like stepping into a place designed to test human limits, where every breath feels heavier and every shadow becomes a moment of relief, reminding you that Nevada's landscapes never forgive careless decisions or rushed travel. But shockingly, only a few hours away, Nevada has tall mountains covered in thick forests, creating a strange contrast that feels like two different states sharing the same border, forcing explorers to adjust as quickly as the terrain changes around them. Climb into those forests, and the air cools instantly, carrying the scent of pine and dirt, and the quiet becomes different, softer, almost peaceful, although part of you can't shake the odd feeling that these calm woods border far harsher lands. Nevada's rivers cut through the landscape in sharp twisting paths that shape narrow canyons, and from above they look harmless, but step closer and you see how deep some of them drop, turning simple walks into risky choices if you're not careful. Standing at the edge of one of those canyons, you feel a sudden rush of wind rise from below, carrying echoes that make you wonder how many travelers once tried to cross these gaps before maps existed, and how many never made it back. Then you reach Nevada's massive desert basins, empty spaces that stretch farther than most people ever drive, and they have a way of making you feel small, like the land is reminding you that time and distance always win in the end. Driving across one of those basins at sunset feels surreal, because the sky turns deep orange and the shadows grow long, and for a moment it feels like you're moving through a world that doesn't care who you are or where you're going. Nevada also holds some of the oldest living trees on Earth, twisted bristlecones that survive where almost nothing else can, and seeing them up close feels like staring at living history that has watched centuries of storms pass without ever breaking. When you stand among those ancient trees, the wind whistles through their branches in a strangely haunting way, making you think about all the stories the world forgot, but these rugged survivors still quietly remember across endless winters. Nevada's rocky plateaus add another layer to this wild state, rising like natural fortresses above the desert floor, and climbing them reveals wide open views that make you understand why people once used these high spots to watch for trouble. At the top, the wind hits harder and the world stretches in every direction, making you feel both powerful and exposed, because these high points give stunning views but also remind you how quickly weather and terrain can change your plans. Nevada's geography also includes strange limestone formations shaped by water that flowed thousands of years ago, leaving behind narrow tunnels and jagged walls that twist unexpectedly, almost like walking inside a maze made by nature's slow and patient hands. When you explore those formations, your footsteps echo in ways that make it hard to judge distance, and the shadows move oddly along the rock, giving the entire place an unsettling feeling that something might be listening from deeper inside. Then there's the Great Basin itself, a vast region where water never reaches the ocean and instead sinks into the ground, creating a unique environment where rivers simply disappear, adding another layer of strangeness to Nevada's unpredictable terrain. Traveling through the Great Basin gives you a strange sense of isolation because the land feels endless and quiet, and the thought that every drop of water stays trapped here makes the region feel like a natural cage built by the earth itself. Nevada's dramatic cliffs rise sharply from desert valleys, forming giant walls of rock that look impossible to climb, and staring up at them makes you understand why early travelers treated these massive formations with both respect and fear. Walk closer, and you notice deep cracks running through the cliff faces, each one a reminder of the powerful forces that once shook this land, hinting at stories of earthquakes and shifting ground that continue shaping Nevada's landscape today. Nevada also holds a surprising number of hidden springs, small pockets of cool water that appear suddenly in the desert, and finding one feels almost magical, like the land is offering a rare moment of relief in a place built on extremes. Stopping by one of these springs at dusk is unforgettable because the temperature drops, the water ripples softly, and the surrounding silence grows deeper, creating a moment where the desert feels almost alive as night slowly takes over. And just when you think you understand Nevada's rugged personality, the land shifts again, revealing strange rock shapes, sudden cliffs, or unexpected water that remind you this state was never meant to be predictable, and every mile brings a new surprise. Nevada's shifting sand dunes rise suddenly from flat desert floors, moving with every strong wind, and standing at their base gives you a sense of how powerful nature can be, because these dunes grow, shrink, and travel slowly across the land over time. Climbing those dunes feels like walking on a giant living wave, and when you reach the top, the endless lines of sand stretching into the distance make you realize how easily travelers could lose their way without even noticing the sky changing. Nevada's landscape also includes hidden canyons carved by flash floods, and though they look dry most of the year, one powerful storm can turn these narrow passages into raging rivers, making them some of the most unpredictable places in the state. Walking through one of these tight canyons is both beautiful and tense, because the walls rise sharply on both sides, and you can almost feel the history of violent water carving its path long before roads or modern warnings existed. In the central part of the state, you find wide sagebrush plains, where the air smells earthy and crisp, and while they seem peaceful, their emptiness carries a strange weight that makes you realize how isolated this region truly is. Driving across those plains at night can feel unnerving, because the landscape becomes one continuous dark stretch, and the headlights barely cut through the stillness, reminding you how harsh and unforgiving Nevada can be when darkness settles in. Nevada's mountain passes add another layer of suspense to the journey because weather can change in minutes, turning a calm afternoon into a storm that sweeps through the peaks, leaving travelers scrambling to adjust before the roads become too risky. Crossing one of these passes during a sudden shift feels like entering a different world because the temperature drops instantly and the wind grows sharp, giving you a deeper respect for anyone who traveled these dangerous routes before modern equipment existed. Nevada's geography also includes wide, open ranch lands divided by old wooden fences, and while they seem simple at first glance, these stretches tell decades of stories about families who tried to tame land that didn't always cooperate. Standing in one of those ranch lands during sunset feels almost cinematic, because the sky glows red and gold, while the distant hills fade into shadows, making you understand why early settlers believed this land held both opportunity and overwhelming challenge. Farther north, volcanic rock fields scatter the ground with black stones shaped by ancient eruptions, and the rough texture under your feet serves as a reminder that Nevada's peaceful moments often sit directly on top of violent geological history. Exploring those rock fields gives you a strange mix of curiosity and caution, because the jagged stones hide dips and cracks that can twist an ankle instantly, proving the land's rugged personality never fully disappears, no matter how calm it seems. Nevada's wide valleys gather fierce winds that rush through at surprising speeds, creating sudden gusts that can push against you with real force, showing how even open space can turn unpredictable when nature decides to shift without warning. Standing in one of these wind tunnels almost feels like a challenge from the land itself, because the air whips around your jacket and fills your ears with a low roar, making you wonder how early travelers endured such constant pressure. The state also contains fertile pockets near certain rivers where green fields break the dry landscape, creating sharp contrasts that feel almost unnatural, as if the land is offering rare oases before returning to its usual harsh conditions. Walking through these unexpected green stretches leaves you with a sense of relief, because the shade and cool air feel refreshing, but part of you knows these areas are fragile and depend on water that can shift or vanish without warning. Nevada's remote plateaus carry an eerie silence because they sit so high above everything else, and when you step onto one, the view feels endless, but the isolation sinks in quickly, reminding you how far you are from the nearest sign of life. The wind up there carries a strange echo, bouncing off distant cliffs and returning in ways that sound unfamiliar, making you pause and wonder how many people ever stood on that same spot and felt the same strange mix of awe and unease. Nevada's geography also includes steep ravines that cut unexpectedly across flat ground, creating sudden drops that seem to appear out of nowhere, and approaching one too quickly can be dangerous when the edge blends into the surrounding terrain. Looking down into one of these ravines, you see layers of rock that reveal thousands of years of history, each one shaped by events far more powerful than anything humans could control, reminding you how small we really are in nature's timeline. The state's unusual rock spires rise from open valleys like giant natural sculptures, formed by wind and water slowly wearing down softer layers, until only these narrow towers remained, giving the land a strange, almost otherworldly appearance. Walking among those spires feels almost dreamlike because the tall, thin shapes cast long shadows that shift with the sun, and each step reveals new angles that make the formations feel alive, like they're quietly watching anyone who enters their domain. Nevada's massive dry basins hold ancient secrets, because many were once large lakes that slowly evaporated over thousands of years, leaving behind strange mineral layers, cracked textures, and hints of a completely different past hidden in the dust. Standing in one of these empty basins feels like stepping through time, because the flat ground stretches endlessly while the mountains circle around like silent guards, creating an atmosphere that feels both peaceful and unsettling at the same time. And as you leave these forgotten basins behind, you realize Nevada never stops surprising you, because every region delivers a new mix of beauty, danger, and mystery, pulling you deeper into a state that refuses to reveal everything at once. As you push deeper into Nevada's rugged terrain, you reach areas where jagged cliffs form natural walls around narrow valleys, creating passages that feel almost hidden, as though the land is guiding you into places most people never think to explore. In these tight valleys, the wind moves strangely, bouncing between walls and carrying distant echoes that feel impossible to trace, giving the entire area an eerie atmosphere that makes you slow your steps and stay alert to every shifting sound. Nevada's landscape also hides ancient lava tubes, long tunnels formed by cooling lava flows, and stepping inside one instantly changes the temperature and sound, making you feel like you've entered a secret chamber carved by the planet itself. Walking deeper into these tubes, the walls feel smooth and curved in unnatural ways, and the darkness ahead encourages you to keep your pace steady, reminding you that even the Earth's quiet formations can feel intimidating when they stretch beyond your sight. Farther south, the land suddenly rises into towering red cliffs lit by intense sunlight, creating a dramatic scene where every ridge and shadow looks sharper, as if the desert shaped these walls specifically to draw attention from anyone passing through. Standing beneath these glowing cliffs, you feel the heat radiating off the rock, and the stillness around you becomes so complete that every movement feels amplified, giving you a sense that you're standing in a place shaped by time alone. Nevada's geography also includes deep sinkholes formed by collapsing underground chambers, and discovering one feels unsettling because the drop appears so suddenly that it forces you to acknowledge how much of the land beneath your feet remains unseen. Looking into one of these sinkholes reveals rough edges and shadows that seem to fall endlessly, reminding you that even the calmest stretches of land can hide unexpected dangers shaped by natural forces working quietly over thousands of years. In some regions, ancient fossils rest beneath layers of rock, hinting at a time when Nevada's deserts were underwater, and imagining that hidden world makes the present landscape feel like a temporary stage in a much larger history. Visiting these fossil-rich areas gives you a strange connection to the past, because the quiet surroundings contrast sharply with the powerful story buried beneath the surface, creating a moment where time feels layered rather than distant. Nevada's remote ridges also create natural borders between ecosystems, and climbing them offers wide views that show how quickly the land changes from rocky mountains to sandy basins, revealing just how complex this state's geography truly is. At the top of these ridges, the wind hits stronger and the world appears divided, with different shades of land rolling out in every direction, making you appreciate how many hidden pockets sit between the more familiar parts of Nevada. Nevada also contains rare hot springs that bubble up from deep underground, and finding one feels surreal in the middle of such harsh terrain, as though the earth suddenly decided to reveal a warm, living pulse beneath the dry surface. Sitting near one of these springs at dusk creates an unforgettable moment because the rising steam mixes with cool night air, and you feel a calmness that stands in sharp contrast to the dangerous edges of the landscape surrounding it. Farther east, towering rock walls shaped by ancient rivers create natural corridors that twist unexpectedly, and walking through them feels like traveling through a world carved deliberately to confuse, challenge, and inspire anyone willing to step inside. The deeper you go into these corridors, the more the shadows stretch and shift, turning simple shapes into eerie silhouettes, reminding you that Nevada's beauty often walks hand in hand with mystery and a subtle sense of unease. In some parts of the state, enormous boulders scatter across the desert floor as if they were dropped from the sky, and their placement feels so random and strange that you can't help but wonder what ancient forces carried them there. Standing among those giant boulders, you feel the weight of time pressing down, because each stone carries marks of wind, water, and age, creating the feeling that you're walking through a natural museum that never needed walls to tell its story. Nevada's high deserts reveal how quickly temperatures shift once the sun drops, and the sudden cold sweeps across the land with surprising force, reminding travelers that survival in this region has always depended on respecting the extremes. Experiencing that nighttime temperature drop firsthand makes you understand why early settlers described Nevada as both beautiful and merciless, because the land tests your awareness constantly and demands you prepare for sudden changes without warning. As you venture closer to remote mountain ranges, you notice how the air grows thin and the terrain turns sharper, creating a climb that feels both thrilling and exhausting, with every step pulling you deeper into Nevada's complex wilderness. Reaching one of these summits offers a breathtaking view, where valleys, cliffs, and open plains stretch endlessly, and in that moment you realize how many hidden layers shape Nevada, making it feel larger and more varied than any map can show. Descending from the mountain reminds you how quickly the environment shifts because warm air returns, shadows stretch across the desert floor, and the silence becomes heavier again, as though the land waits patiently for the next traveler willing to explore it. By the time you cross Nevada's final stretch, you understand that this state holds more secrets than most people ever imagine, from hidden waters to ancient rocks, shaping a place filled with beauty, danger, and stories still unfolding today. And as you finish this journey through Nevada's wild geography, one thing becomes clear: the state's quiet surfaces hide countless layers of mystery, and the more you discover, the more you realize Nevada was never meant to be fully understood, only explored.